the farm gate at dawn. Silence pressed against them like weight. No cattle answered the call. No dogs barked. No insects stirred the air. The ground showed signs of use. Tires, boot marks, dragged soil near the pens, yet nothing alive responded. The feeding bell was still moving. Metal touched metal. Not fast, not frantic. Careful. A sound meant for routine. A signal meant for living things that understood it. The officers paused, not out of fear, out of confusion. The noise carried across empty fields, bouncing off fencing, rolling through open stalls, drifting towards structures that had not been entered yet. The rhythm stayed consistent. Someone had taken care to keep it that way. They searched the outer fence line first. No damage, no forced entry. Then the barns. Hay stacked neatly. Tools placed back where hands expected them to be. Feed bins stood open. Recently used, nothing ate. No blood marked the ground. No signs of struggle rested in the dirt. Absence. Arranged. One officer reached for the bell rope. It swung away from his hand. Not pulled hard. Just enough. The sound continued. They moved through the farmhouse next. Dishes cleaned. Chairs pushed in. Beds made with care that suggested sleep had ended peacefully. Clocks showed different hours. A calendar hung on the wall. Pages turned to a date that had already passed. Photographs lined the hallway. Families. Harvests. Animals posed beside owners, who appeared proud, tired, familiar with the land beneath their boots. Several frames had been removed. The bell rang again. Same interval, same distance, as if timed breath. Radio static crackled, then faded. An officer stepped outside to regain signal. The sound followed him. Not louder, not closer. Present. They spread out across the property, calling names they had not yet learned. Their voices fell flat against open space. The fields gave nothing back. One barn door stood ajar. Inside, stalls waited. Clean. Prepared. Fresh feed rested in troughs. No animal approached. The bell rang. An officer noted the time. Later, another checked his watch. The numbers disagreed. Still, the sound returned exactly when it had before. Someone suggested faulty equipment. Someone else suggested wind. Neither explanation survived more than a moment. Because the rope showed movement. Controlled movement. The bell did not swing wildly. It followed a habit. The kind formed through repetition. Hours passed. Nothing arrived. Nothing left. No tracks crossed the perimeter. The sun climbed higher. The noise did not change. At last a question was spoken quietly, without humor, without drama. If nobody was here, who was feeding them? Before we continue, if you want more stories that make the hair on your neck stand up, go ahead and subscribe to Midnight Coven Tales. Give this video a like and share it with someone brave enough to hear the truth. Because once the bell rings, you'll never know what might be waiting for you next. I grew up here. Family land stretched past sightlines, bordered by hedgerows, split through fencing hammered decades earlier by hands long gone. Ownership passed quietly, name after name, without ceremony. Work-filled days. Seasons decided schedules. Nothing demanded attention beyond weather, livestock, maintenance. Morning began before light settled. Gates opened. Buckets filled. Troughs checked. Fences walked. Nails replaced. Ropes tightened. Tasks completed without thought because memory handled effort. Familiarity dulled awareness. Cornfields whispered during breeze movement, stalks brushing together softly. Never hurried. Cows released warm breath into cool air. Slow huffs rising like fog. Chickens shifted weight upon roosts. Crickets tuned dusk into rhythm. Frogs answered from drainage ditches once daylight slipped away. Evening brought calm repetition. Feed measured. Water topped. Doors secured. Nothing unexpected interfered. Days blended through sameness, marked only by harvest cycles, calving periods, repairs after storms. Distance created quiet. Nearest neighbor lived miles away, separated by dirt road winding through pasture. Signal failed regularly. Silence felt ordinary, welcomed even. Isolation never suggested threat. Solitude meant peace, freedom from interruption. Generations trusted this place. Land provided food, income, routine. Nothing hidden waited beneath soil. Nothing lingered inside shadows longer than necessary. Stories passed between relatives spoke only about droughts, floods, hard winters, stubborn animals. One structure stood apart. Weathered boards leaned inward. Roof sagged unevenly. Entrance remained blocked by chains left untouched for years. Purpose no longer discussed. Presence accepted without curiosity. Every property carried something forgotten. Children avoided it instinctively. Adults ignored it entirely. No reason existed to approach. Life continued through patterns learned early. Predictability ruled each sunrise, each sunset. Work ended when light faded. Rest followed naturally. Sleep came easily beneath familiar sounds. Confidence grew from repetition. Trust formed through years without incident. Nothing challenged expectations. Nothing demanded caution. That place never asked for attention. Nothing ever happened out there. Until it did. Unease arrived quietly. Livestock shifted during darkness. Hooves scraping wood. Bodies pacing within enclosures without cause. Movement replaced rest. Breathing grew quicker. Ears stayed angled toward corners lacking presence. Sleep abandoned stalls long before sunrise. Morning checks revealed containers drained sooner than calculation allowed. Grain vanished faster than mouths could manage. Measurements failed consistency. Portions refilled by habit disappeared before daylight returned. Rations increased. Counting adjusted. Nothing changed. Tracks appeared near fencing after rainfall. Imprints pressed deep into softened earth. Length exceeded expectation. Width felt unfamiliar. Pattern suggested balance, not haste. Marks stopped abruptly, as though lifted rather than turned. Questions surfaced briefly, then passed. Wind became explanation. Animals startled easily. Weather influenced behavior. Ground held prints from wandering wildlife. Rural life carried irregularities. Nothing unusual demanded alarm. Nightfall brought repetition. A single chime echoed across acreage. One strike, then silence. Sound traveled from feeding area, soft yet deliberate. It didn't linger. It didn't return immediately. Pause stretched long enough for doubt to settle. I blamed shifting rope. Air currents nudged metal. Old fixtures reacted unpredictably. Later, scraping followed from somewhere enclosed. Boards flexed. Hinges whispered. Not loud, not persistent, just enough to register. Rats, raccoons, settling wood. Rational answers lined themselves neatly. Routine continued. Work resumed. Explanations sufficed. Another evening arrived. Another strike sounded. One note only. Nothing followed. Animals responded instantly. Heads lifting together, bodies stiffening as if trained. Eyes fixed toward darkness beyond fencing. Silence returned thicker afterward. I waited. Counted seconds. Nothing happened. Sleep eventually came. Morning exposed further absence. Buckets emptied again. Grain dust coated surfaces without spills. Latches remained secured. Mud revealed fresh impressions overlapping older ones. Size unchanged. Direction inconsistent. Depth uneven, like hesitation. Wind shifted crops nearby. Corn rustled in long waves. Sound filled space convincingly. I accepted it. Doubt felt unnecessary. Fear felt excessive. Experience reassured calm. Until I reached the feeding post. That's when I noticed the bell wasn't hanging where I left it. Patterns announced themselves through timing. Each night sound returned precisely, neither early nor late. Darkness settled fully. Stars appeared, then metal answered air. One measured call, identical across evenings, aligned with the same unseen moment. No deviation followed. No echo lingered afterward. Livestock reacted before awareness caught up. Heads lifted simultaneously. Bodies rotated together. Attention fixed toward a single stretch of ground beyond enclosures, beyond fencing, beyond logic. Muscles tensed. Movement halted. Breath slowed, always facing identical direction, never elsewhere. Distance separated assistance. Cellular reception failed completely beyond tree line. Attempts to reach outside voices ended in silence. Road access stretched long and empty, dirt winding toward nowhere quickly. Nearest household remained far enough to feel unreachable. Loneliness pressed quietly, without drama. Fatigue began shaping perception. Rest shortened. Sleep fractured into shallow intervals. Thoughts returned unfinished. Concentration slipped during tasks once effortless. Mistakes crept into routines. Nails dropped. Gates left unlatched, then secured twice. Pressure accumulated through repetition. Responsibility weighed heavier than usual. Stress blurred certainty. Rational explanations grew thinner each night. I watched animals refuse entry near one particular zone. Hooves halted before invisible boundary. No force moved them forward. Even hunger failed persuasion. Attempts ended with retreat, agitation, vocal distress. That section of land remained unchanged visually. Grass grew evenly. Soil showed no damage. Nothing marked danger. Yet avoidance remained absolute. Sound arrived again. Heads turned again. Eyes locked again. Sleep disappeared entirely. I questioned memory, considered exhaustion, blamed overwork, blamed isolation, blamed imagination stretched thin by long days and longer nights. Still, timing never shifted. Still, direction never varied. Still, refusal persisted. Awareness settled slowly, without panic, without clarity. Something was already there. Before I arrived, I searched for confirmation through paper. Ledgers rested inside a cabinet rarely opened, pages brittle, ink faded unevenly. Dates skipped forward without reason. Entire seasons vanished between entries. Years collapsed into blank space. Margins carried erasures where names once lived, scraped hard enough to scar fibers beneath. Ownership shifted abruptly, lacking signatures, lacking closure. Questions formed quietly. Records mentioned harvests never remembered. Livestock counts contradicted memory. Births appeared without lineage. Departures lacked explanation. Several entries ended mid-sentence, pen strokes stopping sharply as though interrupted. One book contained marks deeper than ink. Grooves ran across wooden covers. Lines pressed deliberately, repeated again and again. Letters formed through pressure alone. Warnings existed without context. Instructions appeared without audience. Whoever carved them expected understanding from someone not present. I closed the book. Air changed inside structures afterward. Temperature dropped unevenly. Sounds carried farther than expected. Movement echoed oddly. Each step felt observed from angles lacking windows. Inside the barn, breath surfaced where none belonged. Slow exhalations brushed timber walls. Moisture gathered along beams. Warmth hovered briefly, then faded. Approaching silenced it instantly. I stood listening. Nothing followed. Later, murmurs floated near stalls, not language, not noise, just suggestion shaped through tone. Nearness erased them. Distance restored them faintly. Proximity ended everything. Animals began vanishing without trace. Gates remained secured. Fencing stayed intact. No blood-stained ground. No marks showed struggle. Presence simply ceased. Counts dropped steadily. Silence expanded. Nighttime felt longer. Shadows stretched unnaturally. Corn stopped rustling despite wind. Insects paused mid-chorus. Absence replaced sound. Records offered no comfort. Carvings offered no clarity. Voices offered no source. Understanding settled slowly, heavier than fear. I wasn't the first person to hear it. I reached a threshold without choosing it. Tension followed constantly, no longer distant, no longer subtle. Every task carried weight. Every sound demanded attention. Calm disappeared entirely, replaced by expectation. Something shifted nearby during twilight hours. Peripheral awareness caught motion slipping behind posts, behind doors, behind stacked equipment. Direct focus revealed nothing. Turning too quickly erased certainty. Looking away restored awareness. Observation felt mutual. Sightlines narrowed. Awareness sharpened. Presence lingered beyond confirmation. During night cycles, duration stretched unnaturally. Darkness refused to pass. Minutes lengthened into stretches lacking reference. Fatigue deepened without relief. Dawn arrived late, then earlier than expected, never aligning with memory. Timepieces disagreed openly. Wall clock crept forward sluggishly. Wristwatch advanced rapidly. Phone displayed yet another hour entirely. Adjustments changed nothing. Discrepancies returned immediately. Sleep became impossible. Closing eyes invited sensation of being observed closely. Opening them revealed shadows occupying new positions. Orientation faltered. Familiar spaces felt altered subtly. Distances misjudged, corners reshaped. Movement appeared again near feeding grounds. Shape suggested height without form. It stayed partially concealed, never offering clarity. Distance closed slightly each appearance. Awareness of attention felt undeniable. I prepared confrontation mentally. Tools lay ready. Flashlight charged. Voice rehearsed words never spoken aloud. Resolve formed through necessity rather than courage. Approach halted abruptly. Air thickened near that section. Steps slowed without instruction. Muscles refused advance. Instinct overruled intention. Whatever waited there did not need introduction. Retreat happened quietly. Then came certainty. The bell sounded again. I had removed it earlier. Metal lay secured inside storage, wrapped carefully, rope detached completely. Post stood bare. Nothing remained capable of motion. Sound traveled regardless. Measured, controlled, familiar. Removal changed nothing. Understanding settled heavily, undeniable now. That's when I realized the farm wasn't abandoned. I found the answer without searching. Clarity arrived through absence rather than discovery. Meaning formed quietly, assembling itself through fragments already witnessed. No single moment explained everything. Instead, understanding gathered weight through accumulation. Records shifted context. Missing entries no longer suggested error. Gaps marked transitions. Scratched names indicated completion rather than loss. Ownership never transferred through sale. It passed through endurance. Generations maintained continuity through participation. Carvings inside wood revealed sequence. Instructions aligned with routine rather than warning. Language addressed someone present, someone chosen, someone expected to recognize obligation instinctively. The bell served function, not alarm, not signal. Accounting. Each measured sound corresponded with balance maintained. Each strike acknowledged receipt. Care followed rhythm. Ritual disguised itself as work. Livestock disappearance aligned with schedule. Feed distribution matched necessity. Offerings replaced nourishment. Participation occurred through habit, not awareness. Movement observed earlier belonged to role fulfillment. Watching ensured readiness. Distance tested resolve. Hesitation measured suitability. Isolation ensured acceptance. Contact absence prevented interference. Sleep deprivation softened resistance. Stress blurred refusal. Fatigue opened space for assumption. I realized preparation never involved arrival. Selection occurred long before. Return marked continuation. Caretaker duty required presence, not permission. Each generation provided one. Land demanded stewardship beyond labor. Silence preserved process. Knowledge remained implicit. Bell removal failed because function surpassed object. Sound existed independent of material. Count continued regardless. I had already begun. Understanding completed itself gently, without fear, without surprise. I understood why no one ever leaves. I tried leaving. Preparation came instinctively. Essentials gathered. Engine checked. Direction chosen. Steps carried intention away from center, toward boundary, toward road remembered clearly since childhood. Distance collapsed strangely. Fencing appeared sooner than expected. Path curved without turning. Landmarks shifted positions subtly. Trees rearranged through familiarity rather than motion. Progress felt real, yet ineffective. Sound followed. Metal contacted air again. Closer. Resonance traveled through ground this time, vibrating soles rising through bones, settling behind eyes. Rhythm remained unchanged, yet proximity shortened space between strikes. I moved faster. Breath shortened. Muscles strained. Sweat formed despite cool air. Footing felt uneven where ground stayed level moments earlier. Direction lost meaning entirely. Vehicle waited ahead. Keys turned. Ignition responded. Movement failed. Headlights, illuminated field already crossed. Gate remained closed exactly as earlier. Tracks behind showed departure. Ahead showed arrival. I never crossed anything. Noise continued. Animals appeared gradually afterward. Shapes emerged from darkness calmly, unafraid, familiar. Cattle returned first, taking positions automatically. Chickens followed, settling without distress. Livestock accepted surroundings without hesitation. They faced inward now, towards center, towards sound. Routine resumed around me without instruction. Feed bins filled again. Troughs emptied steadily. Hooves pressed earth into recognizable patterns. Breath warmed air during early hours. Bell rang again. Closer, still. Care resumed without effort. Days aligned through repetition. Tasks completed themselves. Memory blurred distinction between intention and action. Purpose replaced choice. Cycles closed seamlessly. Another beginning waited already. Everything reset. Darkness stretched differently now, heavier than earlier nights, carrying sound without source. The bell rang again, somewhere beyond sight, far off yet impossibly near. Metal met air with precise cadence, each strike resonating through trees, across empty fields, over fences, through the soil beneath my feet. Steps followed soon after. Slow at first, careful, deliberate, not heavy but deliberate enough to announce presence. They came from angles unseen. Every attempt to locate direction failed. Shadows shifted incorrectly. Corn stalks bent unnaturally. Ground compressed where nothing rested. The animals returned. Eyes glimmered in the dim. Heads lifted, bodies stiffened, hooves pressing mud into recognizable patterns. They faced toward the sound, toward the unseen observer, yet ignored me entirely. Their presence felt ancient, expected. I became irrelevant within the rhythm, simply a witness to events beyond understanding. The bell struck again. Closer, louder, or perhaps only closer in perception. Each clang sent vibrations through the air, through bone, into thought, pulling instinct forward, demanding attention, commanding memory without words. I felt it in the chest, in the hands, behind eyelids. Every nerve attended, every pulse synchronized to rhythm I could neither influence nor escape. Footsteps multiplied, surrounding me. Not loud, not fast, just enough. The crunch of earth, the scrape of boots on gravel, the faint brush of clothing against brush or siding. All present yet unseen. I tried turning. Nothing appeared. I tried calling. No answer came. Only sound, only cadence, only expectation carried across every field, every barn, every empty structure once familiar. Time dissolved. Minutes blurred into hours. Clocks disagreed with themselves. Darkness no longer followed sunrise. Awareness became continuous. Every moment merged with previous and next. Sleep failed. Hunger faded. Breath remained steady, yet unnecessary. The bell sounded again, off-screen, not attached to rope, not restrained by form. I heard it behind walls, beyond fences, above barns, inside shadows. I tried walking toward it, away from it, circling, climbing, hiding. Motion proved meaningless. Sound persisted. Presence persisted. Silence did not. Footsteps came closer, surrounding me entirely now. I never saw them. I never identified source. I only perceived inevitability. Expectation pressed inward, weight without shape. The ground beneath trembled subtly, synchronizing with metallic clang. I realized fully that I had become part of it. Observer and observed merged. Roles indistinguishable. Responsibility invisible yet undeniable. Caretaker beyond awareness. Witness trapped in loop. And then the moment ended abruptly. The bell continued. Footsteps paused, resumed, vanished. Light changed. Shadows remained. Air thickened, thinned, carried nothing and everything. Animals faced forward, attentive, unbothered. Life, routine, cycle, ongoing without mercy, without pause, without conclusion. If you ever hear a feeding bell on an empty farm, don't answer it, because if the animals are already fed, who is the bell calling for? If this story gave you chills, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more stories.